Hello and welcome to another episode of Radio Yes Cymru, which is on your favourite podcasts and also on the Yes Cymru YouTube channel. My name's Sean Jobbins. Two guests today. They've been with us before. Mark Hooper, the Barry boy, and Ciara Marshall, who stood in Cardiff West for Plaid in the last general election. Welcome both to Yes Cymru.
Diolch, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Looking forward to it.
Good. And we're going to be discussing the rally in the Barry. I've wanted to say that for a while, Mark Hooper. So it's the Yes Cymru all under one banner March for Independence in the Barry on April 24th, if I'm right.
26th.
26th, sorry. So that's a Saturday in the Barry. I'm really excited about it. It's great. It's in Barry. It's a new place. It's in the urban but not valleys, Wales, which I think is so important. Barry's fifth biggest town in Wales. After
we think we're the biggest sometimes. So
yeah, the biggest town
up for grabs.
Yeah,
they'll all be.
Maybe, but
the rest of them are becoming cities because now you've got Wrexham's a city, isn't it, or something?
Yeah,
so
yeah. So I think you're probably the biggest. Well, it's between you and Bridgend, isn't it? Fight. In any case, welcome both to the podcast. So Mark, start you. You're a Plaid Cymru councillor down in Barry. You're one of the organisers of the rally, which is going to be, I guess, about sixth Yes Cymru rally, which, you were there in the early days when setting stuff up, and the rally down in Cardiff, which to everyone's pleasant surprise was amazing. So tell us why Barry to begin with, because I mean, I'm still thinking maybe Yes Cymru, because I'm not part of the central committee, would go for something like Tredegar, someone in Rhondda maybe even Bridgend or Llanelli. These are other important places to march for independence. So I go for Barry.
I think they, all of those places you mentioned could and should have marches for independence in their time. I don't have any doubts about that. I think what we were looking for is that I think Barry is a bit unique in some way. Well, it's unique in some ways, and then it's obviously it's the same as other places, I suppose, and others. But we're quite a unionist place, I'd say. I think people tend to support the unionist parties more often, but Plaid have been making some gains in the centre of town, been working, we could be controlling Barry Town Council in 27 for a big thing.
Yeah.
Things are strange. And I think it sort of indicates to me, and the thing that's gone around in my head again and again and again, is it feels like when we win Barry, we win. Game over. It's the time when we, give us the keys to the Senedd. It's ours now, because it feels very much as though that's the case. And I think it's a bit of a statement, therefore, that Barry's an important place to be. So I'm really excited. I think it'll be great. I know you said this in the preamble before we recorded, you don't see enough people with smiley faces leafleting. So I'm going to take some smiley faces of me leafleting next week.
Yeah, because I mean, this is, I think for the independence movement to win, there's loads of things we have to do. We have to do everything. But I think it's come to me that the old-fashioned analog is possibly one of our strengths. We need to have stuff on social media. That's why Radio Yes Cymru is on TikTok, thanks to Ciara, and on Insta and stuff. But I think the old-fashioned leafleting through doors and stuff like that is so important. So maybe, well, Mark, just before I go to Ciara, maybe I don't know if Yes Cymru haven't announced yet who the speakers are. So if you want to keep that under wraps, that's fine. But if you want to tell us briefly, so that the makeup of the day, how it's going to look, that'd be so we have an idea.
So we're going to be meeting at a place called King's Square, which after the rally we're going to rename Independence Square. we may on the day. Meeting there at 12, and the march starts at 1 from there.
Yep.
There's going to be a really good market there, great indie market. I think there's about 20 stalls there already, with the usual beer, local wine, local beer, etc., etc. So that'll be really good. The Friday before is something which I'm really looking forward to. We're working with Scotonomics on a debate on how independent Wales would at least try and solve some of the issues of austerity. So looking at economics from a different lens, which I think is going to be fascinating.
And where's that going to be, Mark?
That's going to be in the Park Hotel in Barry, which is a pub in the centre of Barry. So all of these things are building up to being a really good march. And I think one of the opportunities, I remember that first march took us all by surprise. We all walked there and we thought, is anyone else coming? And you arrived and you thought, wow. It was a real wow moment.
It was.
And it feels very much as though we could, Barry's 8 miles from Cardiff.
Yeah.
The movement really needs to get together and make sure they
Yeah.
turn up to Barry, because it will just show the rest of Wales, but it show the UK that we're really serious and in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, Mark, what makes me very happy is seeing happy Yes Cymru people leafleting, pointing at street names or letterboxes. That just brings joy to my heart. So, Kira, you stood in Cardiff West for Plaid in the last general election, had a good vote from Plaid's point of view, didn't win the seat, but I mean, people were impressed with your campaign and the campaign in general there. So basically, we need people from Cardiff to jump on that train from Central, get down to Barry, and be part of the march. And I think, people listening in Cardiff now, stick it in a diary. There's no international match. There's nothing else on. You can go to John Lewis or you go to Cardiff Market another day. This is the day you need to make yourself down to Barry, and hopefully it'll be a sunny day and then go to the beach or the fun fair as well. So what's your feeling, Kira? I mean, if you're part of the organisation, is there any sort of leafleting or anything happening in Cardiff as well, or is it just so Barry-centric?
No, we have actually. We were out on the St. David's Day parade leafleting around the town centre, and that got a really good response actually, because I feel like you're getting lots of people in the sort of spirit of celebrating Wales out on St. David's Day. So I was there for that. And we're also working with the Yes Cymru Cardiff team to distribute leaflets around Cardiff to people's houses. So I was doing that today, and I'm kicking myself now that I didn't take a photo.
Photos, this is what the public wants. People want pictures of happy Yes Cymru people.
I've got people I'm going to drag out with me soon, and I will remember to take a photo next time. So yeah, that's happening in Riverside and Canton, just in my sort of patch, but I know that's happening all across Cardiff as well.
Oh, excellent.
Because I think it's so close. It's like 20 minutes on a train from Cardiff. So I think we should get turnout like we saw at that Cardiff one. I think it's going to be.
I mean,
lovely day.
Cardiff people, and I'm from Cardiff, are notorious for not leaving Cardiff. Yeah. So, and say it's almost as quick to go to Barry as it is from central Cardiff to, Rhandir or something. It's not far at all, and it's a nice trip as well. So we need people there to show their side, and it'll just be a good event. So I mean, because the economics talk on a Friday night, which I think you say the stores are sending all kinds of stuff, which is also a nice event as well. Then the speakers, which I'm sure will be announced. Are you speaking in your view? Do we want to keep this all under wraps until it's all done, controlled, and in a positive way by Yes Cymru Century? Okay, we move on.
I don't think anything is a secret, particularly.
Right, okay, well, I haven't heard anything. So I mean, are both just talking at the rally?
Well, Kira's doing. Go on, Kira, you go first.
I believe so. I think we are both talking at the rally. I don't think it's a secret, or if it is, we've spoiled it now. So I was planning to talk about. Well, I've been trying to do a lot about getting young people involved in politics, and young people are so supportive of the independence movement out of any age demographic. So how do we, utilize that? And that's sort of what I'm hoping to focus on and discuss a bit.
Yeah, and I mean the support within the younger generation is higher than in others. But the peculiar thing that I noticed with Yes Cymru is people actually doing the stuff tend to be my sort of age.
Yeah.
Maybe younger, older. I mean, so it's a peculiar situation where the support is within the younger generation, but they're not actually out doing stuff. And I'm very careful not to sound like a grumpy old man here. And they're basically people my kids' age, and I don't know why that's happening. I don't understand it. I don't understand why they're not out on the street doing stuff in general, because they've been screwed as a generation. I mean, I really feel for my children. I'm really fearful for them, and they're not going to have the chances I had, and certainly not their grandparents. And I just don't understand why they're not on the street and just leading the movement. It shouldn't be up to people like myself and other old people like Mark Hooper doing stuff like here.
Yeah, I think this is something I found a bit in the Cardiff West campaign, is that it's sort of a catalyst effect. Is that once you get one young person or one or two young people who are seen out doing stuff, I think other young people feel they can get involved. But if you're going to like a committee meeting for the first time by yourself or something, as I don't know, an 18 or 20-year-old, it's so distant to everything you've probably done before that is quite nerve-wracking, or it might even be boring for someone to do on their own. But once you are going with others and it becomes more social and you understand what's going on, I think you just need that support network to do it. So I've been trying to sort this out in Plaid a bit, and I'll get around to doing it in Yes Cymru as well. Is just organising young people to meet up together to go to stuff, and then you'll get people who do find they really enjoy it and stick with it. And that's what we've had in Cardiff West. And I think it's just finding those key people to start that across the movement.
I agree with that. I think there's something else though, isn't there? Something I think young people's agency has been taken away from them for a long time. You know, people are expected to do rubbish jobs. You know, they finish a degree and then go and work in a job that pays you a pauper's wages essentially. In the main, you know, these things just reduce people's belief in, can I actually change things? And I think that forget about what age you are. I think one of the things that we've got to do as people who are engaged in politics is make people actually believe better is possible. And I think that for too long we spend our time trying to manage things we will do things that are marginally better than the other people. And frankly, that isn't good enough, because like you said about your children, Sean, I think it's the same for everyone who's got kids. I've got stepkids, and you worry and you think, well, what's the future? Really, and we have to be better than it is at the moment, and I think that's the challenge. And I don't think that's age dependent, and that's largely about having ambition for everyone and for the country, you know. And it's a deep thing that I think, and it is infectious. I think Keir is dead right that if things get infectious, people get excited, and at the moment politics is really, really boring. You know, when I watch, I'm one of those stupid people who watches FMQs, and I'm probably just sitting there on my own. I've got a little tally in the. I can just imagine, you know, when they look at the screen, so how many people are watching? And there'll be one person from Barry. And him again. Well, Kira's probably watching it in the office though, but I'm watching it because I want to. You know, this is we've got a real issue. It's just not. We have to do something that's much more interesting, exciting, and actually hope. You know, I remember Adam once said to me years ago, he said, politics, hope needs to be at the center of politics. And at the moment, frankly, it isn't. They're just going, it's like, nah. It's just boring.
And I think this is where the independence movement and the whole point of setting up Yes Cymru back around 2016 stuff is to have the maximalist position. And I think that does, you know, people don't go to march for confederalism or more federalism, you know, even if that's what it sort of ends up being, I don't know, but I mean, people will go for a maximalist march, and that's the lesson from Brexit, and that you have to give something which people think it's at least clear and honest, although Brexit, I think, is a very different beast to the Yes Cymru and the Welsh independence movement. It just felt to be clear, and I think certainly at the moment people don't feel. It's peculiar because there's so much going on. There's a crying need for clarity, both economically, where things are not improving much, when in fact the economy has gone down a little bit the last quarter, I believe. There's huge question about democracy with the fight for Ukraine. You know, Trump is talking about taking over Canada and Greenland, and he will. I think believe dictators when they say what they're going to do. So I think people need that clarity. I mean, I'm still intrigued why the section of society who are being most screwed aren't on the street. And you know, and I think Mark, you touched on it in terms of, you know, people are being worn down. They don't think change is possible, and maybe change only comes, you know, when people do feel a bit better off, as you saw in the 60s. But we need to change that. I need to change that fast. I mean, hopefully the rally is a part of that.
But sorry to cut across you, Sean, but what's the offer for young people of an independent Wales? Because I don't think we've articulated that. Right. So what's the future? If the future that they can, even when, you know, people say, well, you'll get good jobs and you know, but that isn't something. People have jobs at the moment. In our generation had jobs, and our parents' generation had jobs for life. But they wouldn't have said, you know, they worked their socks off, had a pension, and died quite soon afterwards in the main. So we've got to change the way that I think we start setting the scene. And for me, it's about saying, what's the sort of society we want to build in an independent Wales? And that is a really inclusive conversation, but that sets the tone, I think. And I think there needs to be a real offer for young people as part of that. You know, people go through education at the moment to come out as, you know, cogs in a capitalist wheel, that they're nothing more than that. They're taught to sit down, shut up, listen, do their exams. And, I think we need to have much more than that. And that needs to be articulated by people.
And do you think that's a job of a political party like Plaid Cymru or whoever, or is it part of a broad movement like Yes Cymru? I mean, there's a danger there Yes Cymru gets bogged down in policy and people arguing about the minutiae of independence, and then you end up with fractionalism and falling out.
I think that we're all interested in a society we want to build, and I think is a wide conversation that we can have, but we need new ideas into it, because actually the current situation, whether you're a young person who's growing up in somewhere in deepest, darkest England or Wales, it's the same. It's not a dissimilar situation. For a lot of people, it's hopeless, and I think we need to rebuild it. It doesn't mean that they can't, get through their life.
Yeah.
But we need to offer more than just getting through life. Where's the excitement? Where's the interesting stuff going on?
I think Yes Cymru is in this really beautiful position where they can say if. So it's if this is something you want, if you're a young person and you don't want to have to leave to England to get a well-paying job or have an exciting opportunity, then independence could be that solution. And you can apply that to a lot of different things all over the political spectrum. And that's the beauty of Yes Cymru, whereas a political party has to actually say no, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to achieve it. Whereas Yes Cymru, I think, has the ability to let people sort of dream and get excited about something, and that's what
So I mean, and this is an important and interesting point. I mean, in a way, the pro-independence sentiment has reached some kind of plateau where it's somewhere between a quarter and a third of the population. And that's fine. I mean, that's amazing considering where it was 10 years ago. So I'm quite happy with that. But there's obviously another segment of society who hasn't been convinced. And I'm guessing they're going to come over sort of as a block of, say, 10%, 15%. So do you think to get that next block together, to get to the next step or plateau, we need to be saying something a bit more detailed, or something which gives us a clear idea of what independent Wales could be? Is that what the message I'm getting here? Or I mean, I am very concerned of movements fracturing, and it has happened, and people are arguing about stuff in the end which may not even happen. I mean, but I mean, I think we need something, but I'm not too sure what.
Yeah. So I think you're right. So how do we get to those different plateaus?
Yeah.
So we got from 10 years ago, Brexit had a big impact on people. That's when I came to the independence movement. Was through Brexit and seeing that change. We needed a different sort of change than was happening. Then we had COVID, which I think was a mass. I remember, you had your head in your hand when COVID started. You thought it was the end of us, Sean. And that changed things. And I think what we've got to do now is not wait for something else to come and be our Philippa. We've got to start to build that. And it feels like, I think there's a big opportunity for us to talk about the society and independent Wales could be, and that forces you to have a conversation about the economics, which, again, a great Jobbins quote, I think, is when you said to me, I think it was on the last podcast that we were on, Kira, when he said, it used to be that the economics was the worst argument for independence, but now it seems to be the leading argument for independence.
Well, it does. I mean, that's been a revolution for me. For me, and total surprise as well. I mean, think about that and think about making your own luck. And I think independence would still come within some kind of configuration or a Europe-wide readjustment or something, I think, in any case. But I'm just thinking, and I'd be interested to hear your views, Kira and Mark. I'm so pro the membership of the EU. I think there are some questions about it, but I think that's the only game in town for me, partly because I think it's a way of making sure that Westminster can't claw powers back from Wales, which I think they would do, because just the sheer size of the body politic there. I mean, should the independence movement say, look, we could be, if it's good enough for Ukraine, who are literally fighting for their national survival, and they don't feel that being part of the EU is the same as being part of the USSR, then sure, it's okay for Wales. And also, from polling, the people, and as you alluded to, Mark, people support independence very often sort of more pro-European than others. Should the independence movement, or yes, can we say, look, we want independence in Europe, and that could appeal to another segment of the population. I don't know what you think.
I think it's one of these situations again where, like, yes, we can sort of say if you're someone who wants this would be achievable through independence. And it was the first election I ever voted in, and I voted Remain, so that was a great start to my political life. So, and I'm part of a political party that wants to rejoin and have a closer relationship with the EU. So for me, that's definitely, it ties in with the movement and the narrative of, this self-determination if we want to be part of the EU again. But I don't think it needs to necessarily be the end goal of an independence campaign. But I definitely think there's people where that is going to win them over, and that's an argument, to give to them, and also help them maybe feel reinvigorated to fight for EU membership again through an independent Wales.
What do you think, Mark? Because you're almost sceptical on the EU question.
Yeah, I voted Remain more because I think we are better being an international. I'm an internationalist by nature, so I believe in us working together with people. But I also don't think it's the question, because I think it's a question that's so far. So when we get to be an independent country, we've then got a period of time before we then could even get into the EU. I think there are things that should do immediately, like join the customs union. I think that's straightforward. It would help trade. I think that solves a lot of the problems we've got. But it also, I think, there comes with restrictions if you join the EU. I think if we had to take the euro, then you just look at what happened to Greece, Spain, Portugal, and Ireland. Their political control went after the banking crisis, and it was all taken in Frankfurt. And I think you've got to be careful that it's for independent. What do we want to do? What's the society we want to build? Let's have those questions, and then you can say what's the best way of doing it. I do think we need to be, have closer ties with the EU, but I also think we should have close ties with England. We can't, that's part of the thing. We're not going to be a isolationist country, and if we do, then I think we'd be worse for it.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's I don't think that's going to happen. I just find it interesting that the UK at the moment is neither big enough to take on like Trump, nor quite small enough to be agile. In a way, the UK is the wrong size to some extent, and I think Starmer is trying to play a careful game with Trump, because he knows he can be screwed by him if he's on the right side, because he doesn't have the backup of being in the EU, which say Germany or Denmark even has in terms of Greenland, which the UK doesn't have. And I don't know, I think there's a case being made for Wales in Europe, sort of, we get the best of both worlds in terms of we have an independence, as much independence anyone can have, but then you've got the way to make sure the Westminster can't take back power, which I think they'll try, not necessarily in a nasty way, but they will. And also it's strong enough against the America or China or whatever.
There was a professor who used to be at Aberystwyth University called Leopold Kerr. I don't know who was very close.
Yes.
Yeah, very close to Plaid back in the past, and was a fan of Schumacher's work. And Schumacher wrote a book called Small is Beautiful. I think we're getting to a global world now where you've got three big powers. And I'm trying to be polite in the way I do it, but it's like the swinging dicks competition. It's just it's just completely not where Wales wants to be. And what you've got is the UK and the EU, for that matter as well, trying to say, no, we're big too. We can be a big player in it, and I don't think it really cuts it. I think there's space for it. You use the word agile, and I remember there was Catherine Taylor, from Aberystwyth, had a sign saying, small enough to be different, and small enough to make a difference, and small enough to be agile. I think those are the sorts of things that we can be, and there's space for that in this world of frightening change. And I think trying to be a big player is a route to just disaster. I think for a country like the UK, I think you're right. They're too small. They pretend they're the big boys. Yesterday there was a photo shoot of all of the leaders taking off their jackets to be like
Right, okay.
Zelensky. And you just got to question. It's clearly just a photo opportunity. But whoever said to him, "Here you go, take your jackets off. This will make a difference." To one guy who's like within days of the war, when he could have got out, stayed there, and a direct threat to his life, and all these other people. Look, I'm going to take my jacket off. It's kind of pathetic. I think we want to be. We don't want to play that game. I don't think we need to.
I mean, the other thing I've been pondering about, if you look at the history of Welsh nationalism, it tends to grow when to lifestyle where people feel there's a bit more fat in the land. They feel they can discuss things which are not just the basic grind of living on, but also where they feel safe. So I think in 1979, the referendum there was, in one respect, was bound to lose because the Cold War was at its height. There was a threat of invasion, something by the USSR, and I think people felt that being a part of the UK was safe. Obviously, once the wall comes down in 91 or 89, 91, then that sort of threat had gone. So it felt safe then to vote for devolution in 1997. And I'm concerned if we're going back to another Cold War situation with that impact on the independence movement, in terms of people say, look, we need to be part of bigger umbrella because all this dangerous world out there. And that could be made a case for the UK, I think, and that's why I think maybe we should be looking at making a case for Europe, because rather than the UK being the safe haven, Europe does, and Europe doesn't inhibit Welsh independence the same way as the UK does. So I think at a macro level, I think there's something we need to be thinking about, the way politics shifts, in tectonic ways more than just the small sides. I don't know. Or am I just talking rubbish? Kira, you can tell me either way. I'm big enough to accept it.
I think there is a good case there, and it makes sense. Like that's what the argument is for being part of the EU, isn't it? But like I think there will be a lot of people who currently perhaps don't feel like the UK does make them safe, especially if we looked at like the potential of Nigel Farage or Reform coming in, who are so anti working with Europe, and he's so pro-Trump. That feels a lot like not safe at all, like quite concerning, and that's a real possible future at the minute. And then I also think if we look at how the UK has protected people through other crises, like the financial crisis, so many families were just left to struggle and left to get in debt, and cost of living, the UK allowed energy companies to make billions, they allowed the supermarkets to make huge profits. Meanwhile, over 30% of children in Wales live in poverty. Is sort of like an illusion, really, isn't it? That you can talk the big talk on an international stage, meanwhile your citizens struggle. And I think people are catching on to that. It's slowly happening. It's been, my whole lifetime has been one crisis after another. And there's a whole generation who I hope will catch on to this now, and slowly we will get change.
Yeah, and of course you allude to the big difference with 1979, where the UK actually had a manufacturing base, where people felt that the UK as an entity did deliver, and it did to a large extent in terms of the NHS and education, and utilities were state run. And
it also built the Austin Allegro.
Yes.
Kira doesn't know what we just said then.
I don't know what that is. No idea.
Yeah, that's tragic.
We used to build cars that used to rust when they came off the production.
Yeah, cars which but there were things, at least they were in public ownership. Although people, of course, complained about them as well. Yeah.
One thing that Kira said as well, I think is really important. When you talk about Farage and being a supporter of Trump, he's also a supporter of Putin. So what we've got to get our heads around is where these people, the big power play that we talked about a few minutes ago, we've got people who are really dangerous in our midst that could cause real havoc. And I think we've got to be taking these people as they are. Now, they're going to backtrack on that stuff. They didn't mean to say that. But the guy, they got the guy who's vetting Reform candidates. I don't know whether you picked this up in the papers this week. The guy had previously said that Hitler was someone to be admired. In terms of the way he was doing, he talked about Putin having a right to take on parts of Ukraine. These are people who will likely be in our Senate in May 26, unless we go and do the work. You mentioned about putting leaf that's together and do loads of work in that. I think we're repeating, a lot of the lines that we spoke about, the three of us, when we were last on this thing. But things have got more dangerous rather than less dangerous, I think. And when we spoke last, I don't think Trump had won then, had he? I think he was
no.
on the cusp.
Yeah. So yeah, certainly. I mean, and that's why I think, for me, Yes Cymru is so important in terms of it's a way of bringing people to the independence movement. Well, certainly we need to do stuff on social media, of course, but I think just the door to door. I think it needs to be more than that, but I think at least people then see the movement as a real movement. I think there is cynicism about stuff on social media. People sort of accept it and people don't. So I think seeing people on the street there and thousands of people will be, people's lives are going to change in Barry. People can go to that march for the first time, maybe a bit cynical, maybe it's an open mind, and it's going to change. And there's going to be people watching that march on the street, just taking interest for the first time ever. They get a leaflet. I know it's only 2% is it that take up any leaflet drop, but I mean it's just going to change lives of hundreds of people who could be very, very influential people in 1 year's time, 2 years' time. That's why it's so important. So I mean, I know the march itself, to go back to that, it's in Barry, but extended to the whole of Vale of Glamorgan. Are you going as far as Bridgend, or is that being leafleted as well, or how far are you going?
So they're being leafleted. I think Bridgend have got, I think it's this coming weekend, have got a leaflet drive, which I think is happening across other parts of Wales, the Yes Cymru leaflet drive.
Good.
So they'll get leaflets talking about where the march is and, come down to Barry on April the 26th. It was just, can I just pick another point, but it relates to the march, rather. The economics event as well. Kira talked about young people, so we're making it available for free for any economics students.
All right.
Students either doing, I was going to say O level then, but thanks, Sean. I'm glad I'm on this call with you.
I still say year one for year 7 or whatever it is in high school, and I just still can't get. I got 3 kids. I still just can't get around it. I mean, just
so for those who are doing GCSE or A level economics, and also undergraduate economics as well, because I think sometimes, and Kira, you did economics, didn't you, up to degree level as well? So you know what it's like. And sometimes it's a little bit too flat, the subject. And I think what we need to do is to try and bring it to life. So we'd really like, if we didn't make any money from it and it was full of students, I think that would be a real win on that event.
Who's speaking? I mean, I presume we got some people down from Scotland speaking.
Yeah, so they're bringing a bunch of economists down as well, and we're going to have a few of our own too. So
you're speaking in that, Mark?
I'll be speaking in that, yeah. And we've got a Catalonian coming over and doing some speaking as well. So that'll be quite nice. So we're going to, I think, set a bit of a provocation, a societal provocation for Wales that we can address as a.
So then, and said Tegid Roberts, economist as well, is going to be speaking there, is he?
Yeah, so he's winning, and there'll be a couple of others still to be announced. But Scotland, they're bringing 2 or 3 down, so that should be.
Oh, good. Well, that sounds excellent.
Should be good. And the other thing, and this is probably the best thing about the Barry March, is that if you get up at Barry Dock Station, so when I was a kid getting back and forth to school, you used to catch something called the Barry Bustler. So you can just stick it. It was this little yellow bus that used to just pick you up wherever you wanted to and stopped wherever you wanted it. And there's a bus museum in Barry. And they've agreed to run buses from the station, these Barry Bustlers, from the station for free to King's Square. So you'll be riding in a piece of late 1980s history to get to the march from Barry Dock Station. So there's a win if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, so is it going to be a Scar revival with that, or Duran Duran, or music curated by Mark Hooper? Yeah. Well, it was a good time for music, so I would say that. So okay, just looking at we discussed of the march. It's on the 26th of April in Barry. It's going to be a great day. So I mean, it's always a good day, and it's such a positive and pleasant day in any case. So bring a dog, bring your kids, bring a mate. The store's there before, and sending some food stuff, some beers, some merchandise. That's a good place. I mean, are you still open if someone's listening and they fancy having a stall there? Is there still space for more people, or?
Yeah, so it's going to be a really busy trade-in store, but there will be some spaces. We can make spaces for it. It's in Central Park, which is just behind. It's right where the march starts and ends. but it's in this nice enclosed amphitheatre bit. So it'll be really, really
So
nice.
the march itself, there's be some speakers, including my 2 guests today, as part of that. And then the economics talk on the Friday night. Is there something after the march? Because sometimes there's some entertainment stuff going on there, as that hasn't been decided yet.
Yeah, I think that they're still working on that, but it'd be great if we get some music afterwards. There's a few, we were hoping for one venue, but I think that's not going to happen. But it'd be great to have something on the stage and maybe in one of the venues afterwards.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you're coming down, you bring some music with you. It's always good just to have noise going on. I mean, some parts we have people just dragging an amplifier basically with some music pumping out. We had people with guitars and stuff singing and walking. So I mean,
I think isn't there accordions for independence now?
Yes, there's and I think someone's talking about a samba band for independence as well. So I mean, we need more noise. Make it colourful, make it a carnival. I mean, it's there to enjoy. There's no point being quiet. It looks like a bloody funeral then, doesn't it? So I mean, we want people to be there and enjoying themselves. Okay, in terms of, we're looking at we discussed briefly, the movement forward. So I think a consensus here is there needs to be a bit more, just a kind of the vision thing about what independence actually does. What can it do? Stuff economically it can actually change through. I mean, I know, Mark, you're standing for, well, I think you are, Ciara, as well, both standing to stand for Plaid in the election 2026. I presume you started thinking about stuff like manifestos or what you're going to promise people to work on. Maybe start with you, Ciara. I mean, what kind of things you think, were you elected in 2026? What would you be prioritizing?
Yeah, I put out some priorities and I sort of narrowed it down to 3 to start. And one of them was the economy, sort of my interest anyway. I studied it and I've worked in it with Plaid and with the Federation of Small Businesses as well. And basically like supporting wealth retention in Wales, I think is what it's about, small businesses.
So keeping a wealth here in Wales rather than seeping, flooding out.
It's like these huge like international companies, isn't it? Like how productive is that actually for the Welsh economy compared to when we see the local businesses shutting down, which is happening a lot in Cardiff. And you go into Cardiff town centres and it's so many chains, and that should be, prime space for people to start up enterprise there. Transport as well, I think, is a huge one. We've seen, I think, the HS2 issue recently and Labour turning their backs on that. I think that's an argument for independence in itself. Like, no matter who's governing, they cannot be trusted to actually deliver, even within the confines of the system we currently work within. Like, we're missing out on 4 billion. Imagine what we're missing out actually by being able to invest in ourselves. And it's just basic stuff. They've cut so many bus services. I used to work up in Llynishon and I just wait there in the dark by myself in winter, like a young woman, and the bus just doesn't turn up. Like, it's such a basic service that we as a country can't even seem to provide. Is wrong. And then the third one I think is just listening. A lot of my campaign is, based on like I'm a young woman. I'm not very represented in politics normally. And I think there's a lot of people who feel like politics isn't for them. And I think people have also in Wales heavily voted Labour and not felt listened to in that sense as well. So I really just want to represent the area and actually hear people and get change for people who have been struggling, essentially.
And what about you, Mark? What's the picture? What do you think are the priorities, for the government if Plaid was in government in 2026?
So I think Plaid will be in government in 2026. Right. I've got no doubt about that. I think the difference will be whether Plaid leads the government or is playing as a deputy in the government. Yeah. And I think Wales has had enough of Labour, so I think there's a cutting difference now that Plaid needs to step into to actually start to just peel away all those disenfranchised Labour voters. And Ciara is a good example of somebody who Labour voters voted for at the last election for reasons. There were multiple reasons, but some of them clearly Labour didn't care. They put an MP into that seat who even the local party didn't want. It was so dramatic. So I think we're in a really interesting place. For me, I think we need to be talking the long term. I think we need to have the vision that actually takes us to somewhere different and better. I think 4 years goes in a. When you get to our age, Sean, I feel like we said that too often this podcast. You realise 4 years goes in a flash.
It does, yeah.
And we'll be back electioneering again. So I think at some point we need to take a bit of a breath and say, well, actually, this is where we're going, and actually start to tell this, create a narrative that goes beyond this one election term. I think then you can start to talk about things that really, like housing. You know, we have got a housing crisis that is, they've got it elsewhere, but we've got in Wales that we can make a difference to. So how do we start to solve that? That would be one of the key things that we should focus on. And just really, how do you get hope back into our politics? Because at the moment,
I think Plaid has to be transformational. Otherwise, there's no point in it. I think it has to be, you know, to use the sort of the Labour sort of history or mythology, you know, like the 1945. And I don't think Labour can promise that, you know, for like the sixth election going, and they haven't been doing that. So I think Plaid has to be, if it's in government, and I think they will be in government in some form, has to be transformational. It can't be meek, and it can't be. I mean, I look at it in Germany now. I mean, the new government, which is probably CDU, which is like the Christian Democrat. I'm guessing with the SPD, which is like the Labour Party, possibly the Greens. You know, they're talking about pumping £500 billion into the economy, because I think they just realise they have to do something, otherwise the FD is going to win. I know that, and the sort of, as I say, Mark, I think the managerial side just hasn't worked, does it? I mean, people are not happy. And even CDU noticed that, then you know something's up.
No, but it has worked. It just hasn't worked for normal people.
Yeah.
You know, the economy works really well if you've got lots of money. There was an article out this morning that talks about the biggest number of types of businesses registered at Companies House now is buy-to-let landlords. So there's 404,000 in England and Wales buy-to-let landlords that are registered as businesses. So there's more of them than hairdressers, than takeaways, than all of that. So something's wrong when that extraction is the biggest single business type in the UK. You know,
I mean, and you can't blame the individual for that, because it's actually the best business sense. Because for minimum work, you're getting the biggest returns. My daughter's been paying £500 next year for a house in Roath with 5 other people or 4 other people. You know, you're laughing at you. I mean, it's a no-brainer in one respect.
But the state makes the rules that the economy runs on.
Exactly.
So we need to be saying this is a problem. It may not be, you know, and you know, we'll have to tackle some people who are saying, well, actually, you know, I quite like my money coming in without me doing very much. Thank you very much. Well, there's more important things that we need to solve in Wales, and we need to get a grip with some of those.
And that's money which is not going back into the local economy, as Kira noticed, you know, in terms of shops closing down. So if young people are working, paying rent, or you're not even young people paying rent, and it's taking about an extra £200 a month from them, that's £200 not going to local clubs, hairdressers, buses, whatever, which makes the whole economy poorer.
It prevents like people being able to actually go and do what they want to do as well. It's not just extraction out of Wales, but it's extraction from the individual of being able to live like a fulfilling life. If you're paying like an extra £200 to your landlord or your energy provider or whatever, that's your standard of living significantly worsened, especially on a low income.
Yeah, because I mean, if you go to some towns in Wales, no, everything is bad. I was in Brecon a few months ago. Lovely town. My father's from Brecon. It's buzzing there. You know, there's money around Brecon. There's people like, you know, who don't have money there, but it's buzzing there. You go to other towns. I mean, there is money, but it's all in the same place. And you know, that is the problem, isn't it? The money is about there, but it's not being shared around the communities and within communities as well as it should be, which is actually better for the economy in general and people's standard of living, because there'll be more services and there'll be better amenities for people with that.
Yeah, and Kira and I have both been working on Kira more so than I, the new economic strategy for Plaid, and in there they talk about ownership really mattering. So ownership, who owns what really matters. And I think what we've got to get to is, you know, if you take energy, people are starting to get really fed up with foreign-owned energy firms putting up wind turbines all over our country. And they're fed up mainly because there's an extraction of wealth that just disappears out, you know, and these are things.
It's the same old story, isn't it? It's like coal and slate and water once again. You know, it's like 700 years have been screwed, basically. And isn't it interesting that the places which create all the wealth are the poorest ones? How does that happen all the time, especially in the Welsh connection? So I think that's a very strong message for Plaid. And I think that's it actually does strike to the essence a lot of people feel is the Welsh experience. And I do notice that, and I spoke to another podcast about seeing a Canadian saying that Canada is not for sale, and I sort of think there's something there for Pride and for the independence movement, in terms of, Wales is not for sale. I think there's a feeling which crosses across people's geography and also, ethnic, if you like, background. If they've just moved to Wales or they've been there for the last 2,000 years, I think people do feel that Wales has been screwed, and it's been just used as an asset to be milked.
Yeah.
So
there's an election winning strategy in there somewhere, I think, Sean.
Well, I think there is, and I think there's also something about retaining our young people. I mean, I think we all want people to have good experience, to go abroad. That's my biggest regret, not just buggering off when I was 21, just for a year or two, just learning different language. But I think we need to have young people, and we're just losing young people at a rate which is similar to Eastern Europe, in terms of the demographic collapse. And I think we need to be honest with that. And I think something which a lot of older people actually are concerned about, because their grandchildren are not growing up in Barry or in Bala or in Aberystwyth. And I think that's something which does strike a chord with a lot of people, older voters as well as the younger ones. I'm going to draw this discussion to a close because I know you have to go, Mark. You're a busy man. So we're looking forward to the rally. So basically, a message to bring out. I want to see pictures of happy Yes Cymru people leafleting on the social media, but I think it's very important in any case. There is space for people who maybe want to have a stall at the march to get in touch with. Who would they get in touch with, Mark, if they're interested in that?
Just if they post at yes.cymru.
Right, fine. And then there's the economics talk on a Friday night. If you're a student, just whoever it is, but make your way down there. It's going to be very interesting. As I said, I think the economics, from what was always seen as our weak point for the independence movement, is now our strong point, because it's not working for most people, and I think people understand that. The march stuff would be a lot of fun. Bring a lot of noise with you, and maybe stuff in an evening. Mark and Kira, I'm looking forward to see what you're pumping out for your candidature to stand for Plaid Cymru. And I think if civil servants are looking at this, I mean, there's going to be a change of government in 2026, I think, one way or another, and we cannot have more listening projects and people talking about stuff. I mean, there's to be huge change, otherwise I think we'll have no one to blame except, the Labour Party will have no one to blame except themselves if Reform do start winning loads of votes, even more in 5 years' time. If things don't change, then it's a big question mark over the future of the Senedd. Mark Hooper and Kira Marshall, thanks for making time with me, Sean Jobbins, here on the Radio Yes Cymru podcast. Lovely to have you again. I'm sure we'll have you again, like a double act now. Maybe next time I speak to you, you'll actually be candidates, or even Senedd members. That'll be interesting to have those chats as well. And good luck to anyone else who's standing for candidature for their own respective party. We can discuss those things as well in the future. Okay, from me, Sean Jobbins, until next time on Radio Yes Cymru, spread the love. We're on the podcasts, on the Yes Cymru YouTube, and on social media. So click and share the posts as we can. Until next time, diolch yn fawr, pob hwyl i chi.
Ta-ra.